All right, are we all set, Jim? Okay, now I can see the recording started. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? My name's Laura Campbell, and I am with Michigan Farm Bureau. I serve as one of your co-chairs for the Water Use Advisory Council. I'm going to get us started off today. Hopefully you've received either by email or can run to Eagle's Water Use Advisory Council website to grab our agenda for today, as well as the minutes from last time's meeting. We'll need those for a little bit later. First, what I'll do is run through our attendance for today. As a quick reminder, since we are still online for this meeting, I'm going to ask you to say both your name and also where you are contacting us from, what city, and if you're outside of Michigan, what state. And then I'll go through council members. If you are here as an alternate for a council member, go ahead and speak up when I call that council member's name, and then we'll get the rest of the folks on here who are on as guests as well, and that'll help our folks who are taking the notes and minutes for this meeting. Once we're done running through the roll, we'll go through any proposed changes to the agenda and to the meetings from meeting minutes from last time. So going out through the roll, Margaret Bettenhausen.
I'm here from Wake Forest, North Carolina.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tammy Newcomb.
Present.
Thanks. Charlie Scott. Chris Alexander.
Present. Okamus.
Thanks. I am hearing some feedback here, so if everybody can check and make sure that your line is muted unless you're speaking, that'll help us out. Doug Needham.
Here from Okemos.
Thank you. James Clift.
Here, Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you. Steve Kohler.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Thank you. Tom Zimnicki.
Hey, present, Lansing.
All right, thank you. Dave Hamilton.
I see he's on the phone right now. So he's present.
Dave, I see you and I see you talking into your phone, but we can't hear you either way, but I'll mark you here. Frank Adewajicek.
Present from Harbor Springs, Michigan.
Thanks, Frank. Jim Nicholas. Mike Gallagher.
Present from Richland, Michigan.
Thank you. Pat Statskevitz.
Here from Grand Haven, Michigan.
Thank you. Jim Johnson.
Present, Holt, Michigan.
Thank you. John Yelich.
Here, Papa, Michigan.
Thank you. Brian Eggers.
Here in Bel Air today.
Thank you. Brian Burrows. Rachel Proctor.
Here from Michigan Center.
Okay, thank you. Buddy Sebastian.
Hey, Laura, it's Mike Frederick. Buddy is not able to join the call, so Jack, Meddy, and I are on the call here.
Okay.
From Lansing.
Thank you. Jason Walther.
Hi, Laura. This is Kelly Turner. Jason is unable to make it today, so I am his alternate, coming at you from Heartland, Michigan.
All right. Thank you. Kyle Rora. And Tom Frazier.
Here from Hazlet.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, I see that there are 2 phone numbers listed on here. Is it just 2? Looks like we've just got 2 folks who are calling in. If you can unmute and identify yourself, so we've got you on the recording. The number ending in 53. And if you're muted, I think it's *6 to unmute yourself, because we're not able to hear you on the phone, unless that's you, Dave.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now. Okay, and then the other phone number ends in 89. Who is that?
Jim Nicholas,
Jim Nicholas. Okay, great. Thank you. Where are you calling us from, Jim?
Oceana County, Michigan.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, and then let's see, other folks I'm seeing on the line here.
I'm in Hazlet.
You're in Hazlet. Okay, great. Thank you, Dave. I'm seeing Mike Alimo. I'm seeing Hannah Arnett, Jeremiah Asher, Carolyn Lethan, is it? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You got it.
Thank you. I'm seeing Clyde Dugan. I'm seeing Abby Eaton, John Esch, Emily Finnell, and Christopher Gothberg. Is there anybody I missed who's on the call this afternoon?
This is Dave Lush. I'm on the call.
Dave, okay, thank you.
Nathaniel Schuff with Eagle.
Thank you. Oh, yep, here now the rest of the names are popping up.
Mark Seaman from Michigan Soybean.
USGS.
Hi, Mark. Oh, sorry. Okay, who was that from USGS?
That was Ralph Hefner.
Ralph, thank you.
Todd Feenstra from Midwest Water Stewards.
Hi, Todd. Thanks.
Clay Dupree from Eagle.
Thanks, Clay.
Kyle Boone with the Brookhaven Band of Potawatomi.
Thank you, Kyle. Did I miss anybody else?
Jamel with Eagle and Grenetta Tamasee. Looks like she just joined us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ben Terrell, Michigan.
Jay
Farm Bureau.
Wesley, DNR.
Thank you. Sorry, who was that from DNR?
Jay Wesley, DNR Fisheries from Kalamazoo.
Thank you, Jay. All right, one last call for anybody I missed, either calling out your name or that you haven't identified yourself yet.
Hi, Laura. This is Christine Spitzley, and I'm here.
Hi, Christine. Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on to our next agenda item, we've got approval of today's agenda. I'll take any calls for changes or amendments to today's agenda. Again, hopefully you received the email of that agenda, and if not, it is available on Eagle's website for the Water Use Advisory Council. And Jim's just got it up on the screen as well. All right, hearing none, we'll take today's agenda as approved. And now we'll turn to approval of our last meeting's minutes. Any amendments, changes to our meeting minutes from the council's last meeting? And those were from April 13th. And I am hearing none there. I will go ahead and move on if nobody's got any amendments to last meeting's minutes, and ask for any public comment. Folks will have a chance to make open comments about any topic again at the end of the meeting, but we'd like to ask you if you've got public comments to try to stick to items related to today's agenda during this time. And any folks who would like to speak up, we'd like to give you 3 minutes to identify any topics related to today's agenda. And hearing none at this time, again, you'll have another chance for some open comments toward the end of the meeting, but we'll go ahead and move on for now. Next piece is legislative report on the implementation update from our 2020 recommendation report. I don't have a whole lot of updates, and I'm going to ask for anybody else who's got any additional information to go ahead and chime in. The only piece of information that I have been able to find related to potential implementation of council recommendations was there was a bill that was introduced by Senator Outman on May 27th that picks up part of the council's recommendations. It recommends $3 million in funding for the Michigan Geological Survey, which was one of the pieces that that this council had recommended to do water related geologic surveying, having in areas having a priority need for geologic data or areas identified by Eagle as having soil or groundwater contamination. That's just been introduced and was referred to the Appropriations Committee. Does anybody else have any information, or does anybody else have updates in terms of legislative contact or budget issues that you're aware of?
Laura, this is Doug. I got a question. Do you happen to have a bill number for Senator Outman's?
I do. It's Senate Bill 488.
All right, thanks. All right, thanks.
And James and Brian, if you've got any information or have heard anything about additional legislative updates or budget updates, this would be a good time to talk about that.
This is James. It's not much, but it's the same as everyone's heard, is that they're in discussions of setting targets. We're hoping that potentially this week, or by next week at the latest, that there will be legislative targets set for each of the budgets. And that will allow the committee chairs to kind of get down to the nitty gritty of what might be included within a final bill. So no details yet. Obviously, some of the recommendations from the council have been discussed, and we're just kind of waiting for those final steps.
I don't have anything else. And Laura, I've just been communicating with Brian Burrows on the side here. He does not have anything else. He is unable to make today's meeting.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to split. You want to split the agenda down the middle then?
Sure.
Let's just say when.
All right. Why don't I cover through the City of Ottawa, Ontario's update, and then if you want to take over from there, that would work.
Fine.
Okay. Any other reports that anybody's got, or information that you've heard, or conversations with legislators regarding Water Use Advisory Council recommendations before we move on? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item. And this is an item that was recommended to be included as an informational update for the council. And this is an update from the City of Ottawa, Ontario. And I'm not sure who is going to be presenting that.
I am Laura.
Okay.
Emily Thinnell.
Thanks, Emily. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Sure. If you can click to the next slide. Thanks. So I just wanted to update the council on the City of Ottawa's application for a large quantity withdrawal. And then I'm happy to take any questions and share what we know at this point. So the City of Ottawa, Ontario has applied for a large quantity withdrawal to withdraw 185 million gallons per day of water from the Quebec portion of the Ottawa River. So they have applied to the province of Quebec. And this is in order to supply their community with drinking water for use in Ontario. So on March 29th, the City of Ottawa submitted its application to lift the ban on transferring water for this use on the basis of public interest. And so the water withdrawal provisions set out under Quebec law prohibit the transfer of water outside of Quebec. And so under Quebec law, the City of Ottawa's water transfer application requires a public consultation process to specifically lift that ban on water transfers outside of Quebec. On May 21st, Quebec public noticed their consultation process to lift this ban for water transfers outside of Quebec related to the City of Ottawa's application. And that was for the purpose of the city's public water intake and moving the water intake from the Ontario side of the Ottawa River to the Quebec side of the Ottawa River. This is the preliminary step for Quebec's jurisdictional review process under the compact and the agreement laws. And the public notice is part of Quebec's process to evaluate the possibility of lifting this ban on transferring water outside of Quebec. So I'll give a little bit of background on the withdrawal itself. This is not a diversion application. The parties to the compact and the agreement were informally notified of this pending application that the City of Ottawa, Ontario was going to be submitting back in November. So we've been kind of waiting and watching to see as the details are shared. The application is subject to a 90-day review period by the parties to the agreement because the proposal for this new large quantity withdrawal exceeds the 5 million gallon consumptive use threshold for a new or increased consumptive use over a 90-day period. So this proposal is for a large quantity withdrawal for a public water supply where the water withdrawn will stay within the St. Lawrence River Basin. It's essentially, as I said, moving the public water supply intake from the Ontario side of the Ottawa River to the Quebec side. And the reason that this request is being submitted by their public water utility is because their current intake on the Ontario side is prone to ice blockage. And the new location on the other side of the river provides some better risk management for ice blockage issues. It's also in a deeper part of the river channel. We are expecting once the public consultation process is completed by Quebec for lifting the ban, if that proceeds moving forward and they're approved, they anticipate submitting the application for formal notice to the parties of the agreement sometime in the fall. And then Michigan would undertake our review of that application at that time. This proposal would be subject to the decision-making standards set out in the agreement, and we would conduct our review based on those criteria. There is a slight increase in the amount that's being proposed to be withdrawn, and I don't have the numbers on kind of what the current withdrawal is now, but we could get that information if there's interest. So we wanted to provide that update for the council. I'm happy to answer questions. We have not seen the full application yet, so I don't have any of those specific details.
Yeah, this is Frank Edowagishik. I have a question. Is there any, there's no proposed change in return flow, I would assume, but I just wanted to find out if that's a factor in this at all.
So the return flow would still be back to the St. Lawrence River Basin. As I said, I haven't seen the details of the application yet, so we'll have to look at, impacts to any wetlands or other surface or water bodies in that area. But our understanding is the return flow is obviously staying within the basin, but then back to the river.
Thank you.
And Emily, you had said that this isn't a diversion, and I guess strictly speaking, it's not an intra-basin transfer either, because it's not going from one lake to another. It's just it's staying within the St. Lawrence River Basin watershed. That's correct.
The reason for the application is really because it's moving the intake from one province to another. So it's a jurisdictional movement, but it's still would be considered a new withdrawal under Quebec law because it's currently being withdrawn in Ontario. So it's a unique situation. as all of these applications, I think, tend to be. And I think, we were expecting the application earlier this year over the winter, but Quebec has obviously had to kind of figure out their participation process and what their procedures are, and actually, what they needed to implement going forward. So it's taken them a little bit longer. And there was some additional information they needed from the city of Ottawa in their application. So it takes a while to actually get a full, complete application. And we expect that may happen sometime this fall.
Okay. Other questions for Emily? All right, not seeing any. Thanks, Emily. I appreciate that update. More to come on that, I suppose, since we'll probably see their application this fall. All right, sounds good. I will at this time go ahead and turn the chairing duties over to my co-chair, Brian Akers.
Thank you, Laura. First up on the committee chair reports is the Data Collection Committee. And Tom, let's see, we have Tim Zanicki. I think it's supposed to be Tom. Are you with us? Tom, can you hear me?
I believe you're still muted, Tom.
It appears that he's here.
He is, and he's muted. Maybe if he's having some technical difficulties, we can come back to the Data Collection Committee.
All right. How about the Implementation Committee?
All right, well, I can start on that, Laura. So we have not met since our last council meeting, but we do have our committee meeting set June 24th at 9 a.m. Just as a reminder, we're going to review the matrix that was developed for the 2014 report. We're going to develop a matrix for the 2020 report and start tracking items that are being addressed, and start compiling a list of items to be addressed in the 2022 report. So if you are available June 24th at 9 o'clock, we would love to join you. Love to have you join us. It is a Teams meeting. So that is what I've got for a report, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Doug. How about Models Committee? David?
There you go.
We got
Okay,
you.
yes. I apologize for the problems that it seems that Teams is not recognizing my computer's microphone. And I had that problem once before, and somehow I figured out how to fix it then, but I can't find the same way to do it this time. But anyway, we'll use the phone and the video. So with the Models Committee, we've got 3 different work groups that are underway. And let me just give a quick summary as to what we're doing with those. And our process is that the work groups do their work, and then we'll bring them to the Models Committee, and then based on Models Committee recommendations, we'll bring that to the full council. So I expect in another meeting or two, we'll probably be bringing some of these to a full report for you. But otherwise, I'll just summarize things for right now. So one of the work groups is downstream accounting. And that's been working for a while, and there's been a major improvement in technology and information. They've been able to add in return flows. So they ran a simulation that included both accounting withdrawals. So if withdrawals in upstream water management area, you would continue to debit that downstream. We've had problems with that because the other side of the coin is you also need to credit whatever return flows are. So they were able to do an analysis where they included both downstream withdrawals and adding back in return flows, and accumulating that downstream. So that was just completed. We need to finish going over that. We also need to look at some precipitation and how that's affecting precipitation patterns over time and how that might be affecting results. And another work group has worked on that, so we'll be pulling information from there. And we also need to consider if other hydrologic processes should be incorporated and how. So there's still work to do, but I think before too long, we'll want to bring some of this, at least some intermediate information to the panel, because I think this will be very instructive for you to see what happens when you include both return flows and with the downstream accounting. The other next thing we have is looking at the the half max rule. And I reported on that last time. We found a technology that looks very promising that will allow some new techniques that weren't available when we developed the tool originally. And I mentioned that at our last meeting, and excuse me, and Steve Kohler agreed to do an analysis looking at the same 30 examples that we looked at back in 2014. So when he has a chance to complete that, the models committee will look at it, and I expect we'll be bringing something to the commission in the next meeting or two to talk about that. But that looks very promising. So there have been some major improvements in the technology, and I think that will be useful for us to look at. The other subcommittee that we've been working with is looking at the index flows. And I did a very detailed analysis of the stream gauge results at different time periods. It was based on some work that Eagle did, updating the gauge record up through water year 2018. So we had a group look at that, and the group wanted to see, okay, are there any geographic variations that we should consider that where maybe there's a part of the state that because of the weather patterns, either dry or wet, that there's more of a significant change in index flow. So we are looking at that. Eagle is doing that analysis. When we complete that, again, the whole committee will take a look at it before we bring it to the council. So those are the three main work groups that we have going. I have updated our summary document, the topics for the models committee. I'll send them to Christine or somebody and ask her to send it out to the entire group. So that will be an update. And I will ask Jim Nicholas if you have anything to add, if any of the work that you've been doing that you want to summarize as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Jim.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't really have anything to update, Dave. There's a couple of things we need to get back to that are kind of hanging out there, like doctor test guidelines and the Cass County model. But yeah, otherwise nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, good. So any questions on the work groups that I summarized? And again, we'll have much more complete reports once they've been to the models committee.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Hearing no questions, let's keep right on rolling here. New Topics Committee. Pat, are you leading us here?
Sure. I don't have a large or a long report. So we did have a meeting since our last council meeting. We had Jeremiah Asher provide a presentation on a groundwater infiltration model that they were working on, and that was pretty straightforward. But how they were trying to use it for groundwater trading was unique. And so we had the presentation, and we just got started in a very good discussion. I had to leave for another meeting, and we went beyond it, and we really wanted to continue the discussion. So we tried to schedule another meeting. It didn't work out. So Jeremiah has been working on getting his presentation taped so that we can provide that tape to others that couldn't attend the meeting. And then we want to reschedule a time to have about a full hour's worth to discuss the topic in more detail. So that's a quick recap of what we've been up to. I'll stop now if anybody else from the committee or Jeremiah wants to add in.
Any questions of Pat?
Pat, this is Laura. Thanks for giving us that update on the project. And I don't know if you or Jeremiah want to speak to this a little bit, but I am very interested in hearing more details about what this proposal would include in terms of a market-based approach to water management or water trading, because my Great Lakes Compact hackles go up when I start thinking about trading water or market-based water solutions, and and the idea that the whole reason we're allowed to deny water to other parts of the country under the Commerce Clause of the Constitution is because of the Great Lakes Compact. And so I start getting real nervous when things start to sound like water being commodified in any way, I guess you could say. So can you talk a little bit more about this proposal?
Yeah, I can give a little bit. I mean, it's still very early. I think probably the terminology is the biggest thing we have to try to make sure that we address so that it is appropriate. It really is more about additional paths for people to access water. If somebody is, let's say somebody has an SSR that they are having to address, they have a number of different options that they could do, so they may have to invest in doing a pump test to determine if they're having connections to the nearby stream. So that's an investment that may cost them a significant amount of money to do. They may or may not get a favorable result depending on what the situation is at their location. But if there were ways that they could increase infiltration to offset their withdrawals, or ways that they could modify things in a more conservative way, or actually increase base flow into streams where that they had a chance to improve in base flow into streams, as opposed to just kind of having withdrawals right up to the very last drop of water that we have. So it's kind of a little bit of a different management approach, all within the same framework that we have. So nothing would be outside of a framework that has already been established. So that's just the kind of the conversation, generally speaking. So I would, the portions about trading, groundwater trading, I think are a little bit further down the line, and that's again more about offsetting and alternative paths that people might be able to change infiltration options.
So what you're talking about then is kind of more of a additional steps you can take during a site-specific review, or additional sort of efficiency or decreasing impact that an individual person could use in their own SSR, and not trading between water users. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think there's some different levels to it, and I'll put together or I have put together a presentation that I can kind of walk through it a little bit easier and break it into some different pieces without having to just try to jump randomly into it without giving a lot of background and context about it.
Yep, understandable. Yeah, if you're willing to, when you put that presentation together, if you could make that available to folks here on the council, I think that would be helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
This is Frank. I have a question.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I share Laura's concerns, but it also, this starts to get into the water user groups. Effectively, you're rebalancing, or trading the use of the water when you get into that. So Laura, you raised a really interesting issue here. How does that affect later? So this isn't really a direct thing for Jeremiah, but this is part of the council's business, is this whole, we get into the water user group issue. How is that going to be different than some of what you're proposing, Jeremiah?
The water user group, if I'm understanding your question right, I mean, they're really coming together to look for different ways that they can all work within the watershed, right? And so they can come up with any number of different scenarios as long as the state accepts those scenarios. So if there were opportunities for people to use tools and technologies and models to, to a change or account for infiltration changes, I think that would be beneficial, especially if you can do that in a way that you can, theoretically improve base flows in an area. We don't account for any infiltration right now in the water withdrawal assessment tool process.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, it looks like Dave Lush had his hand up, and then also Thomas and Nikki.
Dave?
Yeah, Jeremiah, in this process, are you differentiating between shallow and deep recharge? And if not, I think that particular topic should get codified and kicked over to the models committee, since the input-output balance, if we increase shallow recharge, but it's not going to the pumped aquifer, that may be an issue that we need to contend with, especially vis-a-vis the downstream accounting piece that Dave Hamilton just commented on.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally what we do, is we can, as I was talking with Pat, we would try to provide, have some initial conversations like we were doing with the new topics group as just a new topics, but invite modeling and whoever else would like to, participate in those conversations, because it's across, a lot of the subcommittees. So I would agree that, we would all be kind of brought in and talk about that.
Okay, Tom? You had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, and I won't belabor it because I know, Jeremiah, you're early on in the process, but kind of echoing some of what Laura brought up too, would be interesting to figure out, like, if the trading kind of quote unquote is done for some sort of regulatory purpose, or if they were in like a water management area, if that would be allowed, given that Michigan rescinded its trading rules. And I know that was primarily around quality trading. And so I'm not sure if that carries over to this as well. And also if it is like formal trading versus just doing like offsets like they do for, some sort of like corporate sustainability, for instance. So definitely interested to kind of hear more about that. But from the policy standpoint, we'd want to make sure initially if that would even be allowed in the absence of those trading rules. Yeah, we can definitely, and I think it would be more of for an offsetting, but we can definitely look into that in more detail. I think all these, I wasn't prepared to chat much about it at all today, but I think this is really what I'd like to do is just have kind of some start of conversations about these, introduce the concept and have us talk through, benefits or cons of doing these things and feasibility of doing them, because I think there's some potential really good options here, but we need to have all the subgroups kind of weigh in on it. So that's what I'd like to start that process, over the next couple months. With the Water Use Advisory Council.
Good, thank you, Jeremiah. Any more questions for Tom or I'm sorry, Pat or Jeremiah?
I guess if I could just close on that, as soon as Jeremiah gets, that tape of his presentation prepared, we'll make that available. And then we'll allow, a few weeks for the next meeting and make that notice to everybody. So we can have a good hour of discussion. And then if we want to, in the future, we could always make this an agenda item for the whole council if that's more convenient for everybody.
Well, we'll look forward to that presentation. Thank you. Thank you both. Let's see. Up next, Conservation and Efficiency Committee. Emily, are you leading us there?
Actually, that's me today. We'll give Emily a break. She seems to have her fingers in a lot of pots today. You never never cease to surprise me, Emily, all the things you're involved with. So I'll give you a little bit of a break. You can jump in when I forget something, which will definitely happen.
Sounds good.
If you can head to the next slide, please. Thank you. So Water Conservation and Efficiency Committee, we are still meeting monthly for about an hour and a half each time. We have added a new member, Nina Sasse, who is the Executive Director of the Michigan Infrastructure Council. She provided us just a quick update on some of the things they're doing, and I think she's going to be a real asset to the committee and helping us to take a look at some really interesting new ideas, and she has access to a large pool of people. So I think we're going to be able to pull a lot of information just by having added her to the committee. We also continue to hear from various organizations and water sectors about how they enhance or oh, I skipped one. Continued speaker series. Let's go there. So we're still hearing from different groups and organizations and different water sectors in the group so that we can enhance the committee's knowledge and understanding of current practices, programs, innovations that are happening in the water conservation and efficiency realm. So in May, we heard from Rachel Proctor from Consumers Energy about the programs that Consumers Energy is enacting when it comes to conserving water use and to use it more efficiently during power generation. So that was a really interesting one. In July, we are planning to hear from Missy Stultz, who is the Sustainability and Innovations Manager for the City of Ann Arbor. And it'll be regarding their philosophy on water programs and how that intersects with the topics of conservation and sustainability. We do continue to hear, we're trickling in from different water sectors about their plans to possibly review and update their kind of management practices for water. At the last meeting that we held, actually, it seems like it was yesterday, just this month, Andy LeBaron reported that the Golf Course Superintendents Association felt that they really did need to take a deeper dive into their best management practices, and they're going to be doing that in the winter and using a standing committee that they have to review those to determine if any updates are going to be needed. Lyndon Kelly also reported that there is a committee looking at the uniformity between MEEP and GAMPS. So MEEP is the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program. And of course, GAMPS are the generally accepted agricultural management practices. So in several sections that deal with the repair and updates of equipment, as well as odor irritants for irrigation water are being looked at. And they're really looking at language changes or different aspects from those documents that may need to be updated. The Dow Fellows Project is well underway. We continue to get updates from them at each of our meetings. Right now, they're currently transitioning to their summer schedule, and they're working on the first and second goal of their work plan. If anyone would like that work plan again, let me know. I know we've shared it a couple of times. But for goal 1, they've conducted their literature review, they've drafted interview questions, and for goal number 2, they've taken a look at the 5-year program reviews, done the literature review for that. They're currently summarizing their findings and trying to pull out common themes. And then they'll be finalizing interview questions and doing those interviews to gather that information. Emily and Julie Stavelin have and continue to provide feedback to that team on a regular basis on the work that they've completed so far from their work plan. The Great Lakes and Freshwater Week is June 5th through the 13th. So the themes are appreciate, educate, and recreate. The Great Lakes and Freshwater Trivia is going to be released kind of throughout this week. So if you're interested, take a look at michigan.gov/OGL. There's a photo contest, there's water stewardship tip sheets, and they'll be promoting, kind of repackaging some of those Fix a Leak Week programs and information. So, Emily, what did I forget?
Nice job. I think you covered everything. The only thing I would add is that for our monthly meetings, when we do have a speaker presenting, we're trying to record those. So if you're interested in any past topics that we've had presenters on over the last couple of meetings or going forward, let us know and we can share those recordings with you. Great job, Kelly.
Thanks, guys. Any questions?
Any questions of Kelly? Well, you're getting a lot of traction early on, Kelly. Good work. Appreciate it. Tom Zimnicki, you're up next with our data committee.
All right, sounds good, Brian. Sorry about earlier. There seems to be an endless stream of contractors that have to fix things. So we've had a couple meetings, or at least one meeting since the last full council. We have another one next week, I believe, and I'll make sure to circulate that date. We're really looking at kind of 3 main buckets of work for the next year or so, 6 months or so. One of those being data management and kind of assessment. So this is going to be a process to better understand kind of all the data inputs that go into the program and tool, the method for collecting those, how that information is cleaned up in order for it to be used in the tool, kind of that line of work. The idea is to get a better understanding and a consistent understanding of data and how data is used in the program. It's something we've talked about for a while now, and now it's just a matter of kind of digging into it. Inland lakes is another big topic that we've identified. We had some good conversations with folks from Wisconsin and Minnesota on this. We're targeting kind of late summer to work on this a little bit more. And then finally, and this will kind of come towards the end of the year, organizing around how, if we got money appropriated from the legislature for the tool or for the program, kind of how that money will be implemented, and to make sure that like we have everything lined up to allow for that money to roll out efficiently. So like, do we have the contractors lined up? Do we know kind of who is going to do some of this contracted work, things like that? So that's going to be kind of towards the end of the year, but we've spent the last 6 weeks or so kind of distilling down what we're going to work on for the remainder of the year, with that data management work kind of in the immediate.
Great. Any questions of Tom? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Tom. Mr. Milne? I believe it's your turn for our Eagle update. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the program update for Eagle's water use program. Get the cursor in the right place here. I'm going to start out with sharing some good news about water use program staffing levels. I'll give you an update on the status of depleted water management areas. I'll present the final numbers from the unreported large quantity withdrawal initiative, and I'll also explain how we're handling any newly discovered unregistered withdrawals that we run across. And finally, I'll talk about how water use program staff are having an increased presence out in the field. So I'm pleased to announce that we filled the 3 vacant positions in my unit. Ross Helmer and Naomi Morgan are going to be our 2 new site-specific review geologists, so they'll be working with Nat and Clay. They start next Monday, the 14th. And we also hired a new geologist 12, who's primarily going to be doing groundwater modeling, Lena Pappas. Lena will start June 28th. So I will introduce them to the rest of the council at the August meeting. And we'll update their contact information on our water use webpage. Okay, the map I'm showing now is the depleted water management areas as of June 3rd. The water management areas shown in red are depleted regardless of the status of any pending SSRs. We haven't added any new water management areas to that list since April. Staff are currently working on verifying the status of some of those water management areas by collecting miscellaneous stream flow measurements. In addition, some of those areas we do have stream gauges that have been installed by U.S. Geological Survey. So the next slide is the table form. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So the water management areas in gray are those that have been impacted by the former bedrock autopass feature, where when that feature was disabled, our geology review indicated that the bedrock aquifer was in fact connected to the surface water, so we started accounting for those depletions for withdrawals that were registered as bedrock withdrawals. Depletions shown in blue are impacted by open violations that our compliance staff are currently working on bringing back into compliance. Other than that, yeah, pretty much the same as before. The unreported large quantity withdrawal initiative. As you know, that's ended some time ago. We've received a total of 230 applications from property owners or their agents. 181 of those were approved as being eligible to be treated as baseline capacity. 47 were denied, including 37 applications that were still incomplete at the time the initiative ended and were subsequently closed and denied. One application was retracted by the applicant, and we did have one duplicate application. So how are we handling any new unregistered withdrawals that we run across? So far, we've run across 11 unregistered withdrawals. All but 2 of those were on properties that are now owned by Ceres Farms. And Ceres Farms was systematically going through and submitting site-specific reviews or trying to go through the tool to get registrations for those withdrawals to get them into the system and bring them back into compliance. if we run across an unregistered withdrawal, the first thing we look at is trying to figure out, okay, how much stream flow depletion are they likely to cause, and is there enough stream flow available in that water management area? If there is enough stream flow available to authorize that withdrawal, we'll issue an after the fact registration and send that registration out to the property owner. If they don't have enough, if there isn't enough stream flow available to do an after the fact registration, then we have a violation of Part 327, and we'll have to work with them. The compliance staff will work with the property owner to bring them back into compliance. And one of the nice things about being able to increase our staffing numbers is that we're going to be able to have more of an increased field presence. So that includes getting out to do miscellaneous stream flow measurements. We have an agreement with U.S. Geological Survey where their staff are going out and collecting miscellaneous flow measurements at 30 different locations around the state, 20 of which are done during 3 times a year during the irrigation season, and the other 10 are going to be 5 measurements per year, 3 during the irrigation season, 1 before and 1 after the irrigation season is over. So in addition to what USGS is doing, our Eagle staff is able to go out and collect miscellaneous flow measurements at other locations around the state. We also are capable of going out for on-site meetings with property owners and or their agents, get out to do complaint investigations. So on-site meetings with property owners can be helpful, for example, evaluating withdrawals from lakes and ponds. We're seeing an increase in complaints right now during the current drought period. Staff also go out in the field to do compliance site visits, as well as if we like to get out when we can to observe field data collections. So if well drillers are out drilling or consultants are out collecting surface water, groundwater, geology data, what have you, when we get a chance, we like to get out and observe those activities. In addition, with the 3 new hires, we're going to be taking them out in the field to help train them. So are there any questions? Yeah, I guess, and finally, I should say, we don't have any updated timeliness metrics for you now, or authorization metrics, because the quarter still runs through the end of June, but by the August meeting, we'll have our the program year runs July to July. So we'll have our annual report available to share with the council at the August meeting.
Dave Lush, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, Jim, your new modeler who starts toward the end of the month, will they be primarily looking at public water supply reviews, or will they be available to do SSR support work?
Both. Primarily, Jill Van Dyke has the lead with doing the pre-screening reviews for drinking water division. Pre-screening reviews are essentially the SSR for a newer increased public water supply withdrawal. But Lena will be doing supporting geology support for the SSR staff, working with Jill on modeling, reviewing models submitted by consultants and other external parties. And we hope to begin to develop the capacity in-house to start creating and calibrating some of our own groundwater models.
Good.
I think, Emily, you had your hand up?
Yes. Emily, you're mute.
Sorry. I can wait till others ask their questions, but if you'd like a quick update for the council on the integrated assessment research project for the water user committees, I can do that as part of the program update.
That'd be fine.
Do you want me to go ahead now?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Office of the Great Lakes and the Water Use Program worked closely with the applicant on their pre-proposal revisions to submit their full proposal. I think I mentioned at the last council meeting that we only received one pre-proposal for this integrated assessment topic, and that was for the development of the Water User Committee's User's Manual and conducting a series of case studies. It was actually the only proposal submitted for any of the integrated assessment research topics, which was kind of a surprise this year. And so we provided quite a bit of feedback from Eagle to the applicant to make sure that the project is strong and best meets the needs of the department and the state. So they had to submit their full proposals on Monday, May 24th. That full proposal was submitted, and then the next steps are for the Sea Grant process over the next couple of months, and then the NOAA review process begins. So the full proposal will be reviewed by some expert peer reviews outside of Michigan from other parts of the country. That's one of their steps to make sure that they avoid a conflict of interest. There will also be a review panel as part of the Michigan Sea Grant review process. That team will then determine if the full proposal merits recommendation to NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, for approval and funding. And that step occurs around the September timeframe. So basically, Michigan Sea Grant has to determine that the proposal is strong enough and meets their research criteria, and they think it's fundable by NOAA. They put forward that recommendation to NOAA, and then NOAA will conduct its own review process in the fall. And then we'll hear back towards the end of the calendar year on whether the full proposal was approved by NOAA. So there's several steps in the process at this point. And hopefully, if this proposal is successful, we'll continue to have opportunities to really tighten up the project and make sure that it meets the state's and the program's needs. The start date for the grant, if the project is selected and funded, would actually be in February of 2022. So I'll keep you posted. I don't think I'll have anything else to share at the August meeting, but may have something for the next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Todd Fenstra, you had your hand up.
Yes, I have two quick questions. A number of the growers that I work with, Jim I'm sure would have a question about what compliance site visits would entail.
Compliance site visit could be a number of things. It may be going out to meet with the owner and or the agent to answer questions that we might have. If we're doing a desktop review, for example, compliance review of a watershed where we try to match up registrations to water use reporting data to well logs. Frequently, there are things that don't match up, or we may have questions trying to identify, match up a withdrawal with a particular registration or a well log, or it's not clear whether it's a surface withdrawal. We see a center pivot system, but there's no well log and it's no obvious surface water pump feature, so we may need to go out and verify that. It may be, another example would be a watershed where we've got open violations where there may be multiple withdrawals that are potentially contributing to the problem. Trying to get on site and see if we can narrow down, eliminate possible causes and identify which withdrawal or withdrawals are causing the problem. Andy, if you have something to jump in there.
Yeah, I was going to let you finish there too, Jim, but I can just say that these compliance visits that we're talking about, that they either could be if they've been prearranged with a property owner, they might be on site on property if there's something they wanted to discuss or show us, kind of demonstrate how things work, and and give us a better idea what they got going on. Other than that, there's no on property site visits unless they're prearranged. Other than that, it might just be a windshield review in an area with that we have concerns about, because it being one of those depleted watersheds, what we're calling depleted watersheds. Obviously being currently in Zone D status is what those are. But yep, so those are just kind of two broad categories of those site visits that we might do.
Right, and if we need to access a property, then we would approach the property owner for their permission first. Hannah, did I forget something? You got something to add there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add the couple that we've been on, like the property owner invited us, they're asking for us to come out so they can give a little more information and we can see, like Andy said, definitely not, just randomly showing up at anyone's property where they would know. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. The second question I had, Jim, was we've seen the Zone D map a couple times. Personally, I'd be curious to see what the Zone C map would look like. And what I'm wondering is the zone, in part I'm wondering that because with these Zone Ds that are here right now, those are all a negative status. Mm-hmm. How close are we to other Zone Ds popping up? If it's in a Zone C and there's just a limited amount of water left, it may never get to a Zone D. So how has Zone C's grown over the last little bit? That would give us a warning or a heads up, right, as to how rapidly we're approaching more Zone Ds.
Okay, good question, Todd. That's come up before. We have shared maps with the council before showing some of the Zone Cs. Andy and Hannah would have to update me on the current numbers, but there are a number of them. To get it down to a more workable number, we did come up with a list of Zone C watersheds where we had at least 8 SSR requests or more, trying to get some of the higher demand watersheds. So we can update those and share them with the council, either separately or at the August meeting, however it works best, or both.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other questions of Jim?
Jim, I think this is Dave Lush. I think it's useful to share with the council at the appropriate time a map showing Zone C water management areas that have less than 100 gallon per minute available water. Now that's an arbitrary number, I realize, because the tool or the SSR will share the depletion among neighboring watersheds, but it's still a metric that gets after sort of what Todd was talking about, water management areas that are approaching capacity.
Yeah, we can continue to toy around with figure out what is a more reasonable breakpoint, whether that be X number of gallons per minute stream flow left in the watershed, or Y number of SSRs in that area, get some of the areas of higher demand. So we can continue to toy with that and share that with, maybe do a subgroup with Dave Lush, Todd, anybody else that's interested in the topic, and come up with a format that's the most use to you.
Andy LeBaron.
Yeah, thanks. Just super quick. Yeah, just to clarify, the maps showing zone status of all the water management areas of the state. That is something that we can easily and pretty easily and regularly produce those, and have shared those at time, and users can actually come up with their own if they're pretty handy with the GIS and so forth. We've got that data available on the website of the tool that shows the current status of each one of those water management areas. Just like a little spoiler alert, and I don't want to spend too much time, but yeah, we've shared those maps, and they're not as terribly as illustrative as you might think they are. It doesn't really tell a super clear story or anything, but certainly is worth showing, and we're glad to do it. But But yeah, there's really not a good direct and like concise way to demonstrate approaching zone D, just because every water management area is unique in terms of lots of things, in terms of including its available water and so forth. So yeah, zone C, that's the intent, is that it's showing you're one step away from zone D, of course, but that one step, like Todd mentioned, could be so large that it's not likely to ever happen, or at least not trending in that direction anytime soon. But yeah, again, just it's something we can easily share and provide, but is not directly useful as like a clear warning sign, yellow light, this thing is going to turn red. We know it's going to turn red in 8 seconds or whatever it is. Not quite like that.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Todd?
I'm sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
It's okay. Jeremiah?
One of the methods that I was using earlier was to take the average amount of depleted amounts that come out of the watershed. So as Dave mentioned, instead of having like an arbitrary number, because those depletions might be a little bit different, if you go in and just do an average of the depletions that occur across the watersheds, and then look at what you could determine essentially how much one or two more average size withdrawals could have in a watershed before it would go to a zone D. So if you looked at the average size generally of the capacity, and then the amount that's distributed to each of the watersheds, then you could do an analysis that way. Again, it'll be a little bit vary between watershed to watershed, but might give a method that you'd use.
Good, thank you. Any more questions of Jim? Good dialogue, Jim. Thank you very much. Our next meeting dates are August 10th, October 12th, December 14th. Christine, anything to add here?
I don't think so, although I believe, and maybe James or Chris can chime in, that we're still on kind of a month by month wait and see as to whether or not these can be held face to face and where we are with that.
Mm-hmm. We will keep folks posted. Hopefully that August 10th is probably right on the cusp of potential, but we'll know more, and we'll keep everyone informed. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is the public comment period. Anybody have any comments they'd like to share with the group? 3-minute time limit. Public comments are open now for anybody that wants to raise their hand. David Lush.
Yeah, I'd just like to let everybody know that last week we had a Sigler-sponsored groundwater summit. Many of the people on the Water Use Advisory Council participated. The objective was to identify major issues in the groundwater realm for Michigan with an eye toward transferability of those issues to other Great Lakes states and provinces. The outcomes eventually will be a white paper, not more than 25 pages long, that will be submitted back to Sigler, and then at some point down the road, a manuscript submission to Referee Journal. But I wanted to let you know that at least from my perspective and several other supporting members, in many of the discussions we harped on and strongly suggested that this Sigler group make mention of the fact of our 2020 Water Use Advisory Council recommendations and press for their earliest possible adoption.
Oh, very good. Good. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments you want to share with the group today? Going once, going twice. Okay, public comments are now closed. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today on behalf of Laura Campbell and myself. Thanks for putting in the time, and we'll look forward to seeing you all on August 11th.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, everybody.